I'm going to now pass it on to the last shiur, which is with Rav Netanel Buchs, a boger yeshiva and a ram at Migdal Oz. I just 1 second. I'm going to unmute, and we'll start in a moment. Rav Netanel Buchs will give everyone a minute in case they have to get organized or take a quick break. But Rav Netanel Buchs is going to speak about Birkat Hamitzvot, a daily Kabbalat Hatorah. I am also going to upload on the chat the source sheets for Rav Buchs. 1 second. While he will share it on the screen as well, I will share it on the chat for those that want it afterwards. Okay. Okay. So on that note, the Vakasha, Rav Netanel Buchs, the screen is yours. I'm passing it on to you.
Thank you very much. It's really exciting to be part of this Yom Iyun that so many people are taking their time, and it's so important to get prepared for Shavuot. As Yoel said, the topic of the lesson is Birkat Hamitzvot, Kabbalat Hatorah, every day's Kabbalat Hatorah. The fact that we have Chag HaShavuot. Chag HaShavuot is a once-in-a-year occasion, and it's an exciting occasion. We come, we stand, we're all excited. We stand there for Matan Torah. We stand at Aseret HaDibrot. This year, those who will be able to participate in Minyanim, and even those who won't, it's an exciting day in which we are all spiritually involved and excited around the Torah and the acceptance of Torah and mitzvot. So that's really exciting once a year. But how do we keep this deep feeling and this spiritual peak throughout the year? How does it keep on staying with us even on our day-to-day base? That the feeling of, as we know, that we say, that every day we feel that the Torah is with us, that it's new for us, that we're excited, that we are appreciative of the Torah. I think the idea of Birkat HaMitzvot, the special bracha that we say before many of the mitzvot that we perform, I think that can maybe be part of the solution of this problem that I think many of us face, that sometimes it's important to have a yearly reminder of how important the Torah is to us, but we're not excited about it every day. And maybe the understanding of Birkat HaMitzvot can help us a little bit revive this feeling and excitement. So I would want to start from the beginning. When we take a look and we see where does Birkat HaMitzvot come from? Birkat HaMitzvot appears in the Gemara in Pesachim, where the Gemara is talking about the bracha before B'dikat Chametz, and then everyone agrees. The Gemara says, D'chulei alma, on source number 1, D'chulei alma miha mi'ikara ba'inan levaruche. Everyone agrees that you have to say a bracha before the mitzvah. Minalan. Where do we know this from, that before the performing a mitzvah, you have to say a bracha, you have to recite a bracha? And then the Gemara, now the question has 2 points to it. The question is also, around how do we know that it's before the mitzvah? And how do we know at all that there is such a thing as reciting Birkat HaMitzvot? So we have to, when we're going to learn the sources, we'll have to have both questions in our mind. First of all, why to recite a blessing before a mitzvah at all? And the second is, why does the mitzvah come before, why does the bracha come before performing the mitzvah, not after? As we know, we have lots of different kinds of brachot. We have Birkot HaNehenim, that we recite before we eat, before eating an apple, or bread, we say, Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, boreh pri ha'etz. When we finish our meal, we say Birkat HaShevach. Birkat HaShevach is Birkat Hamazon or Birkat, all the blessings that we say after a meal. When we hear, when we're chas v'shalom in an earthquake, or when we hear when we see lightning, so we say the bracha. This we say as we see it, as we're excited about what we encounter. So why in Birkat HaMitzvot does the bracha come before and not after? That's one of the questions. And why does a mitzvah need a bracha? One would say, mitzvot don't need brachot. Why does one need to recite a bracha before we eat an apple? So we understand we can live our lives thinking that kochi ve'otzem yadi asa li et hachayil hazeh. We can think that this apple came because I worked so hard and I made a living and I went to the store and I shopped and I bought myself an apple. So it's my money. You have to remember, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me this apple. So I can understand why to recite a bracha before that. When we encounter very impressive natural events, so we could just think it's nature, Mother Nature. So we say a bracha and we remember that this is also led by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But mitzvot is part of our spiritual life. Mitzvot is something that we perform as part of Avodat Hashem. So why do mitzvot need a bracha? Why do we need to recite a blessing before doing something which is part of Avodat Hashem? This is something that we do all the time, but I think that the question we don't always think about that question. So the source is, let's go back to source number 1. De'amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel Kol hamitzvot mevarech aleihen over le'asiyatan. Shmuel said that all the mitzvot, we recite the blessing before we say it. So we know where the source is. We still don't understand the reasoning. The source is Shmuel. This is a pretty late source. It's an Amorah. Maybe there were brachot recited before, but Shmuel said that all the brachot that we recite before performing a mitzvah, we say it before the mitzvah and not during the mitzvah or after the mitzvah. What's the reasoning for that? So first of all, we have one kind of, before source number 2, I want to go on to other sources before that. In source number 3, we see that there have been Rishonim that have asked this question, both questions, why at all and why before. So in Kiddushei Aritva, he says, "V'ta'am zeh she'amru Chazal levarech al hamitzvah over le'asiyatan כדי שיתקדש תחילה בברכה ויגלה ויודיע שהוא עושה אותה מפני מצוות השם יתברך." This is his first reasoning, his first explanation for the reason that we recite a bracha is that the bracha comes to tell us we are now performing some kind of an act. This act is, we're taking a leaf, a green leaf, and shaking it around. So it doesn't look, what's the meaning of what we're doing? So before we do it, we announce to ourselves and announce to the world that what we're doing now is part of Avodat Hashem. What we're doing now is part of our worshiping HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not just we're doing anything. Let's say before we eat a matzah. So maybe we're eating matzah because we're hungry. If we say before eating the matzah, Asher Kiddashanu b'mitzvotav etzivanu al achilat matzah, we're taking this act of eating and announcing that we're eating now not because we're hungry, but because this is part of our commitment to Ribono Shel Olam and to His Torah. ויגלה ויודע שהוא עושה אותה מפני מצוות השם יתברך. This specific act that we're doing is part of the mitzvot. Now, what I would like to do in this this lesson, is I would like to connect the halachic explanations given by the Rishonim to hashkafic and ideas given later on by Achronim. And I think that you will see a resemblance between the different reasonings, but instead of a halachic terminology, it will be more of like a rayoni, ideas, machshavti. We're going to go towards a direction of more maybe philosophical, of understanding a little bit more in depth what the meaning of the mitzvot and the brachot are. So after we've seen this first explanation of the ritva, that we are to come and announce that the act that we're performing is part of Avodat Hashem, so I think I would like to see the Maharal. But beforehand, let's answer, I want to add another point. Or not the Maharal, I would like to add one other point. The other point I would like to add is that many mitzvot that we do, let's say Sfirat HaOmer. Many people say before Sfirat HaOmer, Hineni Muchan Umzuman Nekayem Mitzvat Aseh, or L'Shem Yichud Gud Shavrich U'Shchintei. We say this before you perform certain mitzvot. According to the Ritva, the bracha is essentially L'Shem Yichud. It's Hineni Muchan Umzuman. That's the point of the bracha, to prepare myself and to announce to the world that now we're standing before a mitzvah of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. This idea appears in we can find it in things that Reb Tzadok HaKohen, in Tzidkat HaTzadik, he takes this idea, very similar idea to the Ritva. He says it are all brachot. But I think that when we read it, we can understand a little bit more in depth the idea that the Ritva said in 2 lines. So Reb Tzadok says, brachot lerosh tzadik. That's a pasuk in Mishlei. Why is Masechet Brachot the first Masechet? He says, Lachach Masechet Brachot ha'atchala me'ashas, sheikar hakol, da et Elokei avicha, ve'achar kach ovdeu, שצריך לידע למי עובד, וזהו הברכה לפני כל מעשה, לייחד כל מעשיו לשם, שנאמר, בכל דרכיך דאהו. וזהו, כמו שכתב הרמב"ם, וזהו על ידי הברכה. The point of any bracha that we do before a human act, it could be a physical act, it could be before eating, and it could be before performing mitzvot, is the point of the bracha is da'et Elokei avicha, the acknowledgement, the understanding that we are standing before Ribono Shel Olam. And then, after you have understood this, after in depth you have recognized the fact that you're standing before a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and that you are part of his, your what's the word? The word mechuyav. You're. This is what you're supposed to be doing. You are now standing before a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and you have to now worship Him. First, you have to recognize what you're doing in what situation. Many times, mitzvot just fly by us. They pass us by without us really standing still for a second and understanding, wait a minute, this is a serious thing that we're doing. We're now performing a mitzvah before a Kadosh Baruch Hu. We all know that there's a very big difference how we do mitzvot that we prepared for, that we are excited when we do them. Let's say Hadlakat Ner Chanukah, that the Rambam says, mitzvah chavivai ad me'od. The excitement around lighting a Hanukkah candle is very big, and everyone understands Pirsumei Nisa, and everyone sings around it. And the Ner Chanukah then doesn't only light a flame outside, it also lights something inside us. And I think this is what Rav Tzadok is trying to tell us what the point of the bracha is. The point of the bracha is that we should be in the right mindset so that the mitzvah will affect us and affect the world in the correct manner. בכל דרכיך דאהו, כמו שכתב הרמב"ם, וזהו על ידי הברכה. Continue on, and then he says, he takes this idea about brachot and physical actions, and he says this is something even much greater. וזהו התחלת הכניסה לתורה. We're standing before Chag HaShavuot, and how should one accept the Torah? Reshit chokhmah yirat Hashem. Torah doesn't just say Torah. Torah is Dvar Hashem. And Dvar Hashem, I have in part of Am Yisrael that we accepted the Torah and we are performing Hashem's will. It's not that we have to do what the Torah tells us. We have to do what the Torah tells us because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one who gave us the Torah. ויראת שמיים הוא על ידי שיוויתי השם לנגדי תמיד. והיינו ברכות. This is the point of the ברכות. ברוך אתה השם, בלשון נוכח, שמיד בהתחלת הברכה צריך להיות השם יתברך נוכח עיניו. כאילו עומד עליו ומצווהו. This is really, if you understand, when the Ritva tells us, זה שאמרו חז"ל, I'm going back to source number 3, כדי שיתקדש, ותחילה בברכה, ויגלה, ויודיע, these are 3 actions. יתקדש, to sanctify himself, and to מגלה, to announce to the world, ויודיע שהוא עושה אותה מפני מצוות השם יתברך. I think Reb Tzadok is talking here about the mitkadesh. What is the mitkadesh? Before I perform a mitzvah, I understand that what I'm standing before Hashem Yitbarach, and when I'm standing before a Kadosh Baruch Hu, then I perform the mitzvah in a much deeper manner. When I acknowledge that fact, suddenly the mitzvah becomes that much more important, and it affects me and affects the world in a much deeper manner, and maybe also the mitzvah's purpose is fulfilled in a wider and more in a more full and exact way. So that's the first explanation of what the point is of Birkat Hamitzvot. And if we go back to what I said, Birkat Hamitzvot is Kabbalat Hatorah shebechol yom. So here we're talking about that the entrance of the Torah of itself is to acknowledge the fact that we're standing before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we have Yirat Shamayim, and to understand that it's Avodat Hashem. And then the bracha is to come and take every little specific mitzvah and tell us, this is the mitzvah that we're performing lifnei Hashem. This is another mitzvah lifnei Hashem. This is another mitzvah lifnei Hashem. And this bracha connects us to the understanding that we're standing before Hashem. But I would like to emphasize the fact, as opposed to other explanations that we will see later, that here we're talking about the Birkat HaMitzvot as referring to the specific act of this mitzvah. This mitzvah I'm performing before Hashem. This mitzvah I'm performing before Hashem. The bracha is related to the specific act that I'm performing now. Very, very similar to this explanation of the Ritva, we have the Rambam. I don't think it's exactly the same thing, but you can argue with me and say that it's exactly the same thing like the Ritva. But I think that the Rambam, according to Rav Soloveitchik's explanation, is a little bit different and gives and emphasizes a different point, which is very close to what we said before, but still a bit different. The Rambam says, when he talks about the different brachot, he says, "Umidivrei sofrim levarech al kol ma'achal tchila." Before we eat, we have to recite a bracha. V'chol hanehene belo beracha ma'al. Whoever enjoys the world without reciting a bracha ma'al. It's like hekdesh. He stole from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then the Rambam says, "Ucheshem shemevarchin al haniya, kach mevarchim al kol mitzvah u'mitzvah, ve'achar kach ya'aseh ota." What is the kishem? The Rambam says the same way that that before enjoying the world we recite a bracha, the same way we also recite a bracha before performing a mitzvah. He says it's kishem in the same way, in the same manner. What does the kishem mean? It means like it's the same thing. It's very similar. What's the similarity? Is the similarity a technical similarity that both of them are before as opposed to other brachot that come after? Or is the similarity something deeper? Rav Soloveitchik understood that it's a deeper point, which is that connects Birkot HaNehenim and Birkat HaMitzvot. Birkot HaNehenim, we know that one is not allowed to enjoy the world without reciting bracha. כל הנהנה מן העולם הזה בלא ברכה, מעל. Whoever said enjoy the world without reciting a bracha, stole from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ma'al. And then the same thing. And then what does the bracha do? The bracha permits us to enjoy the world, to eat. In the Lamdani terminology, it's a matir. It permits us to enjoy the world. It permits us to eat. That's the point of the bracha of before enjoying the world, before eating, before smelling samim. And then Rav Soloveitchik says the same thing is with mitzvot. Also mitzvot, we need a matir. We need to be permitted. We have to, I wouldn't say we have to have a Kadosh Baruch Hu telling us, I allow you to perform this mitzvah, but I think the idea is before we perform the mitzvah, we have to go through a certain procedure to allow us to do this. This, I think, is very interesting. We think if it's our duty, if we're obligated to permit this, to perform this mitzvah, we have to do it. We have no choice. Kadosh Baruch Hu told us to do it, and now we have to get permission? What does that mean? What does it mean to have a matir for a mitzvah? And again, this is connected to what the mitzvot are in depth. Mitzvot are part of our avodat Hashem. A mitzvah is not just something that we perform in the world. We take a matzah and we eat it, or we sit in a sukkah, in a tabernacle, and it's like, wow, it's nice, it's shady. Before, it's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah that came to us from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It comes from another world. It's high above us. It's holy. And this understanding, when we understand that we're not, before one goes into Beit HaMikdash, he has to go through a tevilah. Even if one brings a korban chatat that he's obligated to bring, the entrance to the Kodesh means that he has to go through a certain acts of tahara, right? And he has to get prepared for it. He can't just walk in. The same way, we can't just say, okay, now I'll do another mitzvah. We have to first go through the understanding, this is a holy act. It's part of something above us. This is not a human, this is not part of the human life. This is something above our natural being. This connects, I think this idea connects to the Maharal in source number 8. And this would connect also to the things that the Ritva said, but in the second explanation of the Ritva that we haven't seen yet. So first we'll read the Ritva and then we'll go to the Maharal. The Ritva gives the second explanation. He says, Habrachot me'avodat hanefesh. The brachot is a spiritual avodah. It's a spiritual worshiping of Hashem. And the mitzvah is avodat haguf. It's physical. So what comes first, the spiritual or the physical? The Ritva says first the spiritual. First you do avodat hanefesh, and then avodat haguf. This is a completely different understanding than the Rambam, but it will connect to the Maharal. That's why I'm bringing this where we are now. According to the Rambam, the bracha must come before the mitzvah. The center of attention is the mitzvah. I may not perform this mitzvah before reciting a bracha and preparing myself, sanctifying myself like we saw before, and Kadesh, but understanding that this is a holy situation. I'm now walking into part of holiness. I'm going into something which is part of Olam HaKedusha. This is what I'm doing. I'm performing a mitzvah. That's the Rambam, according to Rav Soloveitchik's explanation. The Ritva tells us something completely different. He says the bracha and the mitzvah are two separate issues. The bracha is the avodat hanefesh. This is the spiritual work that you're doing. And the mitzvah is avodat haguf. The mitzvah is a physical avodah. And what's the order between them? The order is first comes the spiritual part, and then comes the physical part. Now there's a big difference halachically between the first explanation of the Ritva and the second, and between the Ritva and the Rambam and the second explanation of the Ritva. What would be the nafkamina halachically? Whether if someone forgot to recite a bracha before performing a mitzvah, does he say the bracha afterwards? I lit a Hanukkah candle, and then I remembered, wait, I forgot to say the bracha. Do I now say bracha leadlik ner shel Chanukah, or is it too late? We have mitzvot that we say the bracha after performing them, but most of the mitzvot we recite the bracha before. Is this just a question of order, the way the Ritva says? Avodat hanefesh comes before avodat haguf. But if you've made a mistake, so it doesn't matter. So do avodat hanefesh after avodat haguf. The most important part is that your whole self, your whole being is involved in avodat Hashem. Your spiritual part and your physical part. It's all part of avodat Hashem. So if you got mixed up in the order, it doesn't really matter. But if we understand that the bracha comes to prepare us for the mitzvah, according to the Ritva, and according to the Rambam, it comes to permit us to perform the mitzvah. If we've already done the mitzvah, it's too late. And therefore, we can't recite the bracha after performing the mitzvah. This is a machloket le'alacha. According to the Oz this is in source number 6. We're not going to get into that. In someone who says, who performs, who forgets the bracha, he may recite the bracha after the mitzvah. But le'alacha, most of the poskim disagree with the Oz and say that you must say the bracha before the mitzvah, and if you forgot the bracha, it's too late and you can't fix it. You can't change that situation, and you've lost it. Now going back to the idea behind, even though as I said the Ritva and the Rambam are different, they both connect to the fact of the special understanding of what a mitzvah is. A mitzvah is a very interesting creation. It connects the spiritual world and the physical world together. Torah, tefillah, is all spiritual. When we eat and live our day-to-day life. It's more on the physical part. The mitzvah connects both worlds together. It puts it together. And this is the Maharan says about the pasuk, ner mitzvah v'torah or. Right? Ner mitzvah. The mitzvah is similar to a ner. Why is that? רוצה לומר, המצווה דומה לנר. שהאור שלו אינו אור גמור בלא גוף. Torah is just light. It's completely spiritual. רק האור נתלה בגוף. הוא הפתילה והשמן הוא כלי המקבלים האור הזה ואינו אור מופשט מן הגוף. שיהיה אור בהיר, רק עומד ונתלה בדבר שהוא גוף. The language of the Maharal is a bit difficult. But he says the same way that a candle, we have the utensil, we have that we put the oil inside, and then we have a wick, and then we light a flame. And the flame is like a spiritual entity, and it sits on top of a physical obstacle. That's a mitzvah, ner mitzvah. We physically are connected to a spiritual world. That's the idea of a ner mitzvah. And I think this can really very much explain to us why it's important to have a matir. We can easily get mixed up. We can easily be mistaken and identify the mitzvot as part of our physical life. We get up in the morning and we do netilat yadayim. How many of us get excited before netilat yadayim? Say, now this is part of our avodat Hashem. We're now sanctifying ourselves, being part of the kohanim that are worshiping HaKadosh Baruch Hu throughout the day. We usually don't think about this. We brush our teeth and we do netilat yadayim. It becomes part of our physical world. If we understand the bracha as something that comes to prepare us to understand that this mitzvah is something it's above our day-to-day, our physical daily life. It's something that belongs to the world of light, but it's connected to the physical, living, daily, day-to-day life that we live and we perform every day. The way we act, the way we live our life all the time, the mitzvot connect two worlds together. The spiritual, Eloki world high above, and the physical down below, and the mitzvah connects it together. But we can easily lose that. So the bracha comes to tell us. The Rambam says, you have to get permission to prepare a mitzvah. When I know that I have to ask permission, I know that I'm now doing something which is very important and above where I am now. I have to come to this mitzvah with yirat shamayim. This is similar to the ritva, but I think it's a bit different, right? So let's summarize what we've seen until now, and then I'm going to go to the last part of the shiur. We've seen until now 3 explanations to why we have Birkat Hamitzvot and why the Birkat Hamitzvot comes before performing the mitzvah. One explanation was, we'll start from the last one we saw, is that Avodat HaNefesh comes before Avodat HaGuf. The bracha is a spiritual worship of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and when we perform a mitzvah, Chachamim want us to do it as a whole. We shouldn't do this only physically, also spiritually. So we have a spiritual part, that's the bracha, and we have the physical part, that's the mitzvah. That was one explanation. Second explanation we saw, if I'm going from the end up, so we saw the Rambam. The Rambam said that the mitzvah, that the bracha comes to ask permission, right? We want to permit ourselves to perform this mitzvah. We're obligated to do this, but we have to understand that this mitzvah is something holy. It's something that we can't just run in as like the example that I gave, we don't just go into Kodesh HaKodashim, right? There's a whole tekes before the Kohen can't just run in. But on the other hand, he has to go in to the Kodesh HaKodashim. But he can't just run into the Kodesh HaKodashim because he has to on Yom Kippur. He has to go through a whole procedure that leads him towards Kodesh HaKodashim. In a little bit less of a dramatic way, every mitzvah is part of a holy life, and to understand that we're going up another level, we have to say the bracha before. And then the third explanation was the Ritva. The Ritva said that before we perform the bracha, before performing mitzvah, a person has to sanctify himself, right? He has to prepare himself to acknowledge the fact that now he's doing avodat Hashem. This is something that he's working on his own understanding, that now this is avodat Hashem, and he has to, then he's going to perform this mitzvah he's going to be more concentrated on the mitzvah. He will have, when he performs the mitzvah, he will feel, like Rav Tzadok said, Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid, and the mitzvah will be fulfilled in a fuller manner, if I could say it in such a way. And we saw that these explanations connect to different ideas. One was the idea of what brachot are as a whole, that we saw by Rav Tzadok, and the other, what are mitzvot? And mitzvot are the connection between the physical and the spiritual world. A connection between the Torah, which is the light, it's the Or, it's something that stays in our minds and in our feelings, but how does it appear in the physical world? That the connection down to the world is with the mitzvot. Ner mitzvah. Another thing I would like to say, like I said before, all of the Ritva and the Rambam's explanations, both are emphasize the specific mitzvah that we're performing now. We're now talking, but if I would like to, like a bracha, for example, Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, Asher Kideshanu B'mitzvotav V'tzivanu Lehadlik Ner Shel Yom Tov. And I'm saying that this lighting of the candle is part of Avodat Hashem. And then we light Ner Shel Yom Tov. It's good I said Ner Shel Yom Tov and not Ner Shel Shabbat, because Ner Shel Yom Tov, more people first recite the bracha and then light the candle. As Leadlik Ner Shel Yom Tov, and then we light it. And we understand that this candle lighting is not just that we have light at home, and it's not just a nice atmosphere, but now this is part of Avodat Hashem, this specific act. Now I would like to see a different explanation, and then see how Rav Kook, I think, really takes this to another level. Rabbeinu Yonah, on Masechet Brachot, quotes Rav Amram Gaon. He says, before we perform a mitzvah, what do? צריך לברך תחילה על מה שציוונו וקרבנו לעבודתו. This is very different than what we've seen until now. This is not an avodat hanefesh. This isn't that I have to prepare myself late Kaddish. This isn't to permit me to, I'm asking for permission. A matir. No, this isn't this. It's something different. It's saying thank you. Lakadosh Baruch Hu, that he brought us to Avodat Hashem. If I would like to, if I go back to the terminology of the bracha, what are the words of the bracha? Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, Asher Kideshanu B'mitzvotav. That's the most important part of the bracha. V'tzivanu. Why am I saying this now? V'tzivanu le'adlik ner shel Yom Tov. But we're not emphasizing the ner shel Yom Tov. But what we're emphasizing is Asher kideshanu b'mitzvotav. He sanctified us by giving us mitzvot. We're thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the whole Torah, everything. We're saying thank you for all of the mitzvot that we have, the whole Torah, being part of Avodat Hashem. As we said 46 or 47 days ago, depends where we are. In Leila Seder, so we said, we said, בתחילה עובדי עבודה זרה היו אבותינו, ועתה קרבנו המקום לעבודתו. And then we say thank you, and we worship, and we say Hallel, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought us to his עבודה. אתה בחרתנו מכל העמים, וקידשתנו במצוותיך, וקרבתנו מלכנו לעבודתך. And every bracha, says Rav Amram Gaon, every bracha, we don't just talk about the specific mitzvah. Every bracha that we recite, we're saying thank you about the Torah as a whole. Now we'll see this more in detail by Rav Kook in Ayah. Rav Kook writes in En Ayah, this is his commentary on En Yaakov, he says, לכל מצווה יש ודאי תכלית טובה מיוחדת. בין לכללה, כלומר שמציאות המצווה תפעול בוודאי בכלל היותה וקיומה המעשי תכלית טובה במציאות. בין בפרטה. דהיינו שכל מעשה יחיד של כל מצווה עושה חלק מן אותו הטוב הגדול שהמצווה בכללה נועדת לו. I know Rav Kook isn't always easy to understand, so I'll explain what he says here. He says, לכל מצווה has an intention. Either as a whole, when all of Am Yisrael performs a mitzvah, so it brings something to the world, right? Or bifrata, each and every individual Jew performing this mitzvah does something, right? We'll take Hanukkah for an example, as we spoke about that before. If everyone lights Nerot Hanukkah, everyone in the world will know about Nes Hanukkah. If one Jew lights a Ner Hanukkah, so not everyone will know, but it'll still have its, it'll be important. It has, maybe it's a more minor, but it's still important. But this is all dealing with the mitzvah specifically. The specific mitzvah has a meaning when it's performed by all of Am Yisrael, and it has a meaning even when one Jew does it. אומנם, יותר תוכל ההשקפה להתרחב, לדון על אותו הטוב הכללי שיצא מכוח המצווה בצד צירופה אל כלל המצוות כולן. The mitzvah gets its real meaning when you understand that we're not looking at the mitzvah as one specific mitzvah, but part of a whole, part of Taryag mitzvot. שהוא תכלית נשגבה ואדירה אשר אין להעריך רוב הדרה. When we look at all of the mitzvot together as a whole, as one big combination, then we understand that we're not talking about tzav la tzav, kav la kav. I perform 2 mitzvot, and then another 3, and then another 5, and every mitzvah in its details is important. No, I live a life of Torah and Avodat Hashem. And the mitzvot are a whole, they're part of a whole way of life. It's a whole way of living. That's the point of the mitzvot. That each mitzvah has its little minor detail that's important. But the major part is the mitzvot combined as a way of life. והנה בפועל ומעשה האדם מוגבל, ולא יוכל להכניס אל חוג מעשהו כי אם את חיובו ומצוותו הפרטית. We can't live our lives looking at things only in the big picture. We live our lives and we are focused on our mitzvot that we live, on our meals, on our family, on our chiyuvim, on our chagim. Specifically, what am I going through? לפי מצבו ושעתו. That's the human nature, that we think about ourselves specifically. That's how we live our life. That's how we think about our lives. And that's how we can't take in one mitzvah, perform all 613 mitzvot. Rav Kook says we can lift ourselves a little bit higher. And when we do our specific mitzvot that we have to perform, try to lift to look a little bit higher about things and understand that we're part of something much bigger, much greater as a whole. Not that this mitzvah, as we said before, is holy. No. That this mitzvah is part of something much, much bigger. It's one of 613. It's one of many, many mitzvot. It's one of a whole lifestyle. Let's, where does this come? שתהיה בה בבירור על ידי קיבוץ כלל המצוות כולן. By connecting all the mitzvot. When I perform one mitzvah, I don't think, wait, now I'm just lighting a candle. Now I'm performing one act, which is part of my whole life. And when I say, אשר קידשנו, זאתי המטרה של ברכת המצוות, שמשווים אנו לפנינו בכל אירוע מאורע פרטי את הברכה של הקדושה של כלל המצוות כולן. When I perform a mitzvah, I don't look at this as a certain specific act. Part of all of the mitzvot. ברוך אתה השם אלוקינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו. And one of his mitzvotav is וציוונו על. And this is what I started at the beginning. This is our Kabbalat Hatorah every day. When we recite the mitzvah, we not only understand how important this specific mitzvah is, but when we say, Asher Kideshanu b'mitzvotav etzivanu, we thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the Torah that we got. We thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for a whole life, a way of living that we've received, a wonderful gift. And we appreciate that. And we thank it on every little detail. We understand this. When we look at life as many, many little details, so the mitzvot become difficult. They become an obstacle in our life. But when we say that the mitzvah is part of something much bigger, we understand this is an obstacle in my life. This is my way of living. ברוך אתה השם אלוקינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו. אתה בחרתנו מכל העמים, ורוממתנו מכל הלשונות, וקידשתנו במצוותיך, וקירבתנו מלכנו לעבודתך. And it appears in this little tiny mitzvah. And that's why Birkat HaMitzvot, I think, very deeply is connected to Chag HaShavuot. Chag HaShavuot is when we're all excited and we say thank you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu about the Torah. And it's when we are all full of gratitude and understanding the obligation that we have and the responsibility that we have towards Torah and mitzvot. But that's very nice on the first day on Shavuot. What comes after Shavuot, after Matan Torah, after we felt this excitement? So we start performing mitzvot on a daily basis. We had, if Bnei Israel said, Naaseh v'nishma, as in Shavuot, we have the nishma, and then starts the Naaseh. So we have a little bit of a nishma, a little bit of a deeper view of the mitzvot when we say Birkat HaMitzvot before the mitzvah. And then we lift ourselves to a much deeper understanding of what we're doing and experiencing at a specific moment. I hope everyone has a Chag Sameach and an important Sameach and meaningful, and that we all manage to live up to the expectations that Chazal had when they gave us Birkat HaMitzvot, that demands us to, when we live our lives, to really feel that we're living a life of Avodat Hashem and every mitzvah to be connected to the Torah that we're going to be receiving so happily and full of yirah and responsibility on Chag HaShavuot. Chag Sameach.
Sameach, thank you so much, Rav Buchs. I appreciate it very much. And I'm going to everyone, in case, the Talmidot or someone has any questions, or just to say hello. So I will unmute. And thank you very much. It was almost a four-hour long program. So once again, thank you everyone for participating, and Chag Sameach. We look forward to the next program. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.